Hello there, I'm Reverend Nhien, founder of Evolving Enneagram. If you've been seeking a compassion-based, contemplative approach to Enneagram-informed transformation, you are certainly in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. So we are in week 50 of a 52-week Sunday talk series based on this book by Oren Sofer, Your Heart Was Made for This. And if you haven't already picked up this book or you haven't been reading along, just know that it is not too late. I just got an email from a community member who started later in the year in our CPE groups, and she just picked up the book. So you would not be alone if you are just picking up the book now. So we are on the final theme in this book, the theme of forgiveness. And the title of my talk today is Forgiveness, a Gateway to Freedom. I will take today in three parts. I will begin with reflections on the meaning of forgiveness. Of course, this is always just from my point of view. Then I'm going to share 9 activations based on your Enneagram type. And yes, these are straight out of my own book, The Enneagram of Soul, which is coming out April 7th, 2025. I've been waiting so long and it's almost here. And you always, those who are following me on social media, you get a sneak peek at all sorts of things. And I will not only share the activations, but just a little commentary, additional commentary to support you in understanding why the invitation to forgiveness for that number is that way. And then finally, I want to close with a practice. And that practice will be drawn from this book, lots of books today, The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Riso and Russ Hudson. This is a classic if you don't have it already. And I have always loved the affirmations of forgiveness on page 362. So that's what we're going to end with as our contemplative practice for today. So with that, let us begin. So I want to begin by saying that as many of you already know, I have historically identified as a type 1 on the Enneagram, only to humbly determined that I was wrong. But I say this to say that the one of the reasons I identified with the one is because resentment felt so irritation, frustration, all these things felt really close to me most of my life. So if you're sitting there kind of like ornery and going like, I don't know about this forgiveness thing, I don't even know where I thought. Like for the first 30 years of my life, I would say that I didn't even want to forgive. So I mean, I've come a long ways from there. So if you're feeling that way, I feel you. I just want to start by saying that. I had no idea. I mean, and really the truth of it is, even though it's like the world's religious and spiritual traditions all have forgiveness, like as a very core part of it, um, I just didn't have experience or understanding of what it really meant for me to feel invited into it. I mean, other than that sense of good people should forgive, right? But there wasn't like a deeply personal sense of the giftedness that can arise out of forgiveness. And so that's what I want to offer you today, like a glimpse at the potential blessedness and giftedness, the grace that we receive in our own hearts as a result of forgiveness, but that also because we receive it, opens our heart to greater life and greater love, which of course, not only we, but the world needs today. And so when I was younger, I want to say that there were a few things. Conditioning love was something I felt was modeled. And I really felt like there was something in me that thought if I disapprove, if I'm angry at someone, if I withhold affection, I could control them. I could get them to change. And so why forgive them? Like stay upset so they will change. I mean, like I wasn't consciously thinking that, but that was like one way I think I was trying to get my needs met rather unskillfully through unforgiveness. And then the other piece, of course, is there's something in me that if if someone did something that felt disrespectful, hurtful, it would trigger my own sense of inadequacy, unworthiness. And somehow, if I let that person off the hook, if I was just like open-hearted or open to that person, it would feel like I wasn't defending my worth. And so I realized that this is not at all the case, but this was like this unconscious like reason. I think that if sort of like if I made them bad and wrong, then what the way they treated me, like what they seemed to think of me could be made wrong, right? Um, and so these are just kind of two examples from my own personal life that you might consider if you're like, oh, yeah, I think if I stay really pissed off at this person, sort of like even outrage, there's something to where I'm defending myself, and my sense of worth instead of knowing that my sense of worth is innate, right? Intrinsic. That as A Course in Miracles teaches, needs no defense. And when I know that, then, oh, stuff opens. There's spaciousness. And what we know is when our hearts open, they don't just um, open to forgiving this person. When our hearts are open, they're open to good. They're open to the bounty of what others are gifting us. And when our hearts are closed, we are closed to that bounty. So unforgiveness, we carry a weight and we close ourselves off from good in a way that we don't often realize, right? So the other thing is, and this is in my book, we tend to think forgiveness is about our relationship to the person whom we believe harmed us or whom we harmed, intentionally or not. And true forgiveness, I believe, is more fundamentally about removing our internal blocks to the presence of love. So we can reclaim that in our own hearts. It's as if what someone does over there, we're like, oh, we're against you. So we're closing our hearts. When it's actually, we can just see ourselves as, oh, here I am with a closed heart, right? And I can open my heart. I can just open my heart. It doesn't have to do with whether you deserve that open-heartedness or not. It's that I deserve it, right? I deserve to feel that. And I deserve to feel divine love in my own heart. But when I'm in a place of unforgiveness, I cannot feel that. So related to that, if true forgiveness isn't about the other person, then it is not too late, even if that person has passed away. So really, I invite you to consider that if you think, oh my gosh, yes, I mean, there are conversations maybe we have missed having, but we can also maybe practice self-forgiveness on things like that, where there is something to where our relationship with the other person, even if the other person has passed away, our relationship with them exists here now within our own being. And so we can take a look at that as like, oh, how I relate to my story or my history with this person impacting my capacity for being free and being in love today. So another thing is that forgiveness, in my view, doesn't always imply an outer action like talking to the other person or making amends. It can, or even like trying to reconcile. It definitely doesn't mean you have to be friends with that person. I think I've been surprised to hear people get confused about that, like because they've been taught, like, oh, if I'm nice to everyone, I better be friends with them if I forgive them. And I'm like, if someone is unhealthy for you to be around, don't do it. That again, it's about your relationship in your own heart that opens. And I have found that when that happens, I mean, I will get unexpected, like miracles that seem to happen in my outer relationships. But all I was doing this inner work of opening. So the other pieces I want to share that I also described in my book is that this is not an invitation to fast forward your own process somehow, like in a way that doesn't feel right for you. It's about honoring your feelings and your hurt in this moment and merely inviting you to the potential gift to yourself when you're ready in your time, as your heart is willing. And sometimes that's all we have, that we're willing to be willing to forgive. And that can be a starting point. Going back to what forgiveness is not, in his book, Sofer writes, to forgive does not mean to forget, to pretend, or to condone harm, overlooking grievous acts, or erasing our memory. Whoever first said forgiveness is giving up all hope of a better past put it well. Forgiveness releases us from suffering through fully accepting it, Forgiveness honors the past by engaging with it honestly. And he adds later, oh, I love this. Forgiveness never justifies what it forgives. Additionally, Sofer writes, the pain we feel contains the seed of its own healing. When we realize the weight of the burden we carry, the intention to forgive can arise out of wisdom and compassion. When we eventually grow weary of holding on to resentment. And he goes on, but I'll stop there. Just enough that I hope you feel invited to at least be in relationship with this journey of forgiveness. And even if you're not ready today fully, to be willing for your sake. And so we move into part 2 now, and I'll share what I call in my book activations by type, beginning with type 1. And I'm focused, oh, by the way, before I launch in, I am focused on the topic of forgiving others today, understanding that self-forgiveness is a key part of this journey. But I chose it specifically because it's funny, I've shared a lot of social media on the topic of forgiveness, both oh yeah, I post on self-forgiveness and it's like likes and likes and likes and likes. And then I post on like forgiving others and there are a few likes, I'm like, oh yeah, but you don't even know the benefit, and that at one level, if we're all one, it's all the same. And so I wanted to really focus on this invitation today, understanding that self-forgiveness, which may be the topic for next week, is a key piece to this journey as well and is not to be overlooked. With that, now I will launch in. So for type 1, the journey of forgiveness requires you to first question your own conviction. Your tendency to think in terms of right and wrong can close not only your own mind, but also your heart. A closed mind cannot see the whole truth. A closed heart cannot love. Pray for compassion, wisdom, and the willingness to see the person or situation differently. Do not force forgiveness and do not resist it. Simply stay open to forgiveness as a movement of grace, which may happen in any holy instant. So just being open, praying for compassion and the willingness to see the person or situation differently, to have your mind and heart opened, right? Remember that the one really gets convinced that what it thinks is right. There's no humility in that. So question your own conviction, type 1s. For 2s, remember, to forgive is an act of great humility. When you do so, you recognize that what the other person did or didn't do cannot diminish your own worth. Yet you also recognize that your resentful pride is not the proper punishment for the other's crime, whatever its size. Your forgiveness doesn't change your value or theirs. It doesn't necessarily mean you maintain physical connection or communication with the other person. Forgiveness is more an act of soul than body. It is an inner choice that frees your heart to love more fully wherever divine wisdom directs your love next. For 3s, when important people in your life do not play the role you've ascribed to them, you can feel hostile. How will you keep up your winning role if others mess up their lines or worse, destroy the entire backdrop to the performance of your life? Healing begins when you honor your feelings, whether you are feeling hurt, disappointment, anger, shame, or grief. Forgiveness happens only after you release the script you think ought to have played out and accept the reality of the way events transpired. So just a little commentary here to say that it is true that it's almost like sad, embarrassing to say, it's like you made me look bad. Basically, you didn't show up in a way that fit my image of myself that I want to convey in the world. And you're not cooperating with me, you know? that can cause the three to be like, you're not playing the role, like, I'm supposed to be a good mom and you're not playing the role of a good son. So that means that I'm not whom I purport to be in this world. And to set people free from that is such a gift, to set ourselves free, to understand that that's not where um, our ideas of ourselves and how that wants to be portrayed is not where the truth of our being lies, right? So it's a gift to ourselves to remember that. For the four, forgiveness is not about excusing others' behavior, nor should it ever be a means of invalidating your suffering or pain. Rather, authentic forgiveness is an act of self-love and self-empowerment. Without forgiveness, you invite the past to perpetually wound you. By willingly releasing your attention on the past, you can fully claim your power and wholeness in the present moment. You realize that nothing is missing in the here and now. In truth, you have everything you need to live a thriving and beautiful life. Just feel into that. I think my favorite line in that is, without forgiveness, you invite the past to perpetually wound you. For the five, you tend to hold on to incidents that felt shaming or humiliating. Often these reflect moments when your deepest fears of incompetency were realized. As an aside, remember you're a rejection type fives. Somehow you think that your unforgiveness, with its attendant anger, harshness, or coldness toward the persons or institutions involved, protects you from further pain. However, what it mainly does is starve your heart, which requires openness, care, and connection to thrive. Forgiveness is about stepping out from behind your well-guarded emotional fortress because you deserve the freedom to walk unburdened in the world and to experience its many joys. 6, your path of forgiveness is helped by realizing that nothing and no one in this world is entirely trustworthy, including yourself. Believing in people and placing faith in them means that sometimes you do experience hurt or betrayal. Bringing sagacity and compassion to this reality helps you decide what or who is worth the risk of believing in again, and to what degree. It is not about never being hurt again. It is about trusting your intuition to choose interactions wisely and your own strength to bear whatever might come that is beyond your ability to reasonably foresee or control. For the 7, when upset, your favorite strategy is cut and run. Don't mistake avoidance of an issue or person as true forgiveness. When you have truly moved on, you don't need to avoid a person or topic so vigilantly. Taking time to reflect on your past hurt or betrayal and embracing your own pain with presence can support you in finding true forgiveness and thus true freedom in your heart. For the 8, generally quick to forgive, you can find it more difficult to forgive when others won't or can't honestly admit what they have done. It can feel frustrating or unjust when your pain seems to be so seldom acknowledged by others. Recognize, however, that the willingness to forgive is not for their benefit, but for yours. You can let go simply by refusing to stay connected to that person or issue any longer. Forgiveness is a way for you to take back your own energy and power. Yeah. For the 9, the challenge of forgiveness is realizing you are angry at a person in the first place. This can sometimes occur months or years after an incident. Do not jump too quickly to forgiveness. To authentically forgive, you need to first feel the sense of separation and disunity that comes from owning your judgments and feelings about the person and situation. Where the situation allows, you might also need to first speak your truth before you can move toward true inner peace. And of course, again, as I mentioned earlier, you can't always speak your truth to that person, but you might actually speak it to a counselor or a friend to really give significance and space to your inner world, to give voice to what has happened for you, to honor it as part of your journey toward forgiveness. So I invite you to take a moment. You might even pause the video. That was a lot. This is a big topic. You might revisit this over and over again. Again, it's not something that I'm trying to speed you through. I wanted to give you plenty of content to reflect on, however. So with this, I'll close with the affirmations of forgiveness from the book, The Wisdom of the Enneagram. Again, giving full credit where it's due. This is on page 362 of this blue book here. And you might close your eyes at this time. You might pause to consider the exact circumstance first, and then hit play and begin this journey. These are just affirmations that you can take as a prayer at this time. So, I am willing to be willing to forgive myself for my mistakes. I am willing to forgive myself for my mistakes. I forgive myself for my mistakes. I see my mistakes as opportunities for learning, discernment, and patience. I thank life for giving me opportunities to become more wise and accepting. I am willing to be willing to forgive my parents. I am willing to forgive my parents. I forgive my parents. I see my parents as my teachers and my guides. I thank life for giving me such good teachers for my development. I am willing to be willing to forgive those who have hurt me. Of course, you can substitute in here a name. I am willing to forgive those who have hurt me. I forgive those who have hurt me. I see the hurt I have suffered as an opportunity to learn compassion. I thank life for giving me a spirit that is forgiving and compassionate. I am willing to be willing to let go of my pain and suffering. I am willing to let go of my pain and suffering. I let go of my pain and suffering. I see my pain and suffering as places where my heart is open and alive. I thank life for endowing me with a sensitive, open heart. I am willing to be willing to let go of the limitations of my past. I am willing to let go of the limitations of my past. I let go of the limitations of my past. I see my past as what needed to happen for me to become me. I thank life for allowing me to be me through my past. So take a moment in the silence here. I'll close with a quote by Lewis Smedes. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. Amen. Many blessings, many blessings, many blessings.